Despite the fact that there are only 3 games left in this entire NFL season, it was a busy, busy day across the NFL, and especially for our Denver Broncos. If you're new to this channel, my name is Ben, and I break down all things Denver sports. It helps me out if you would like and subscribe. So in this video, we are going to break down the Denver Broncos offered a futures contract to a nose tackle who a lot of people were really high on just a few years ago. We're going to break down who he is, what his strengths are, what his pro comparisons are, and really what the signing of this dude means for the future of the Denver Broncos. So let's dive right into the news of the day, and we're going to then get into some Harbaugh news, some Vic Fangio news, and so much more. So the big news of the day, the Denver Broncos offered a futures contract. Now, what a futures contract is, it sounds super confusing, but it's really simple. And what it is it guarantees a player a right to compete for a starting job at training camp. So not a huge deal. It's kind of like maybe like a promise ring, like to a girl, or like they're predating. I'm not exactly sure, but a lot of successful players in the NFL have actually been on futures contracts. I think most famously, like Kurt Warner was on it. If we think of Denver Broncos, Chris Harris Jr., our famous cornerback who everybody loved, was on a futures contract. The really good guy who played for the Steelers was on James Harrison was on a futures contract, and Adam Thielen. So there can be some really great talent that you want to lock up and say, hey, I want to compete. I want you to compete in camp, and I want you at training camp. Another team could swoop in and sign him to the practice squad. But let's look into who he is. He was with the Arizona Cardinals before here. His name is Rashard Lawrence. He was defensive tackle for the University of Louisiana, LSU, and was on that amazing team, had an awesome sack of now maybe Super Bowl quarterback with Lamar Jackson. He sacked him in the Senior Bowl, and is just a lot of people were really high on him. He ended up being picked in the 4th round, but if you look at who he is, there's a lot of meaning and a lot of stuff to break down about this signing. So I think the first thing that this shows is that Vance Joseph is probably safe. We heard all along that, like, wait, are we actually sure Sean Payton didn't mention Vance Joseph at all in his end of season press conference? And so we're like, wait, is he actually safe, or is he going to be gone next year? He never mentioned him. Well, the fact that we know that this was Vance's guy because Vance was his defensive coordinator the year that Hard Knocks was with the Arizona Cardinals. And so the fact that Vance got to go out and get another guy that he likes, just like he did earlier this season with Zach Allen, I think that shows that Vance is safe and will be back next year, which is really meaningful because today Vic Fangio was let go or mutually parted ways with the Miami Dolphins, which is a crazy move to me. I know they didn't have the best showing in that game against Kansas City, but it was freezing cold outside. And they did dumb things like Bradley Chubb got hurt, and maybe ultimately that was the reason that this whole thing came to a head, was that like maybe Mike McDaniels left it up to Fangio if he wanted Bradley Chubb to be playing in that blowout game against Buffalo, and he kept him in meaningless minutes, and he lost one of his edge rushers. But they were really hurt, and as much as I didn't like Fangio as our head coach, like he is a brilliant defensive strategist. And so interesting that he's on the block, and we know that Sean Payton loved him, and that when he took this Broncos job, this is where he wanted, this is who he wanted to be our defensive coordinator. So the fact that he's on the block, or he's on the market, and we could get him again, but we went out and signed a Arizona Cardinal who we know is Vance Joseph's guy, kind of shows Vance is going to be back next year, at least in my estimation. So going back to who he is and other meanings behind this, I wanted to show quickly what the pre-draft hype was just a few years ago about our new defensive tackle. He is a big old dude, and he struggles in pass rush, but he is amazing at shutting down the run. And what it said is, as you look here, is what he did is he would eat up so many double teams that the edge rushers at LSU were able to get in and get home on the quarterback. And as I think of our edge rushers with Benito, and then we got Cooper on the other side and Baron Browning on the other side, if we had a stout defensive tackle who could help in the run game, that was really the biggest weakness of this Broncos defense, was us in the run game. So this gives us a lot more help in the run game, gives us a lot more depth. And then looking again, I thought this was interesting looking that he was an average backup, so he'll come in and play backup tackle there to Zach Allen. But looking here at the scouting report, I thought this was interesting that right after the NFL draft, they wrote out scouting report and player comps, which is my favorite thing, is looking at, all right, if he hits the ceiling, who is he like? We all like to be like, oh, we got the next Josh Allen, or we got the next whoever. So who is he the next if he hits his ceiling? And really interestingly enough, that this Arizona reporter said his ceiling is Sylvester Williams. And I remember we picked him in the first, and Sylvester never was like first round talent, but he certainly was around and consistent and stopped the run and ended up being a really serviceable player. So his ceiling, Sylvester Williams, I will take it. So the other thing that I think this really shows is that right now the Denver Broncos, irregardless of what happens next season with Russell Wilson, we have to cut some cap. We have to get under the cap, and we're about $20 million over. And there's a lot of hype going into that and a lot of people writing about that. But the fact is, most teams in the playoffs right now, and most teams like right in our range, that 8-9 range, are over in the cap, and that's normal. You make adjustments and cut downs and renegotiate contracts. The biggest one that folks are saying is going to happen, and this was written on Predominantly Orange, love that site, was the biggest prediction they made was, and this was even before our futures contract signing, was that we are going to move on from DJ Jones, which would save us $10 million. So just by moving on from Jones, we are halfway to solving our cap issues. So I think the big things that this shows is that we're going to move on from DJ Jones, and that Vance Joseph is safe and back for another year. I think the other thing is, like, Arizona has been kind of a toxic place with firing coaches and Cliff Kingsbury and all the in and out and weird stuff that you saw there. And I think we're in a much more stable position now. We're going to have all of our coaches back for next year. There's that stability. And you hear so many former players come out and talk about how important having some consistency in the coaching ranks are. I even heard Todd Davis the other day on a DNVR podcast talk about, you always see a position group play better when the coach returns for a second year, and that the more years a coach is with a position group, that the better that team or that position group plays. So I love the fact that Vance is going to be back. He's got a couple of his dudes who've been with him for a long time. He's got Zach Allen. Now he's got our main man, I hope. And I'm very excited about that. Last huge piece of news is it is official. A lot of folks threw some shade at me saying that I shouldn't be talking about Harbaugh till it's official, but they flew out his wife and a couple family members like it was official yesterday, essentially. And now it is on paper. It is inked. Who's got it better than us? Jim Harbaugh has moved on from the University of Michigan, and he is now a Charger. And so twice a year, we're going to be playing Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh, and we're going to be 2 other times we're going to be playing Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. But like a couple of you all dropped in the comments yesterday, it does not matter what anyone else does, because when we play Bronco football, ain't nobody going to stop us. So let's hope that rings true. So that's all I got for today. Thank you for riding with me. And as always, Broncos country, stay buckled up. 2 cams. What is this? It's too much. I'll just stick with 1.